Okay,
Shadowwood.
I'm recording my view right here.
Shadowwood. The fuck is your street name?
I'm gonna record for 10 minutes. Just
I was gonna actually give my address, but I'm not going to.
You know why it's called Shadowwood? Because we have a tree that has a virus outside. It's completely black oak. Some of the most badass shit I've ever seen. You know why? Because I climbed that fucker, and he
Believing
didn't
in
mug
that.
me. He didn't mug me.
Believing in that, holy fuck.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't believe in voting.
Believing in anything.
Wait, what did I say? I didn't believe... I was talking about a tree with an
Fuck do
infection.
I know? You believe in some fucking stupid tree.
What's wrong with believing in a tree that can save your life?
Playing can save
That
anything.
tree saved me multiple times throughout my life where I almost committed suicide. You know why? I went out there and I'd question existentialism under its branches, and it would slowly just descend upon me and give me a warmth that no living being other than a plant could.
Where do you come up with this stuff? You say it so flawlessly.
Off the top of my head.
His homosexual forums.
You got me. I write fan fiction for a living.
Oh
You do?
That's
God.
how I get
Link,
by.
please. Link.
Alright, hold on, I'll get you one.
No,
Wait,
please don't.
fanfiction
No,
about
no, no,
what?
no, no.
I
Depends on
promise
what you
you
want.
right now, if you read this, you'll love it.
I'm not gonna read it.
Is it a Daisy fanfiction?
No, no, just I
Do
didn't
they
write
have
this. I didn't
Daisy
write this.
fanfiction?
I was probably gonna play it off like I did, but I didn't write this. You'll love it.
I'm planning I'm gonna waste my time reading it.
You are gonna waste your time reading it, scumbag.
Vito can read it out loud for all of us.
I'll read it out loud. Lara
Yeah,
Croft's
please.
tight-fitting white shirt was torn off from her body, releasing her enormous tits and sending them bouncing and jiggling. Lara let out a terrified scream as the rotting face of the zombie smiled a disgusting grin down at her. One of the zombie's eyes had fallen out of its socket and hung limply against his cheek. His skin was discolored and flaky, chips of skin peeling away. The zombie's teeth were yellowed with intermittent blood stains from the previous victims. The animated corpse was entirely nude. Apparently he had been a resident of the morgue before the reanimation. The cuts on the zombie's chest also pointed to that conclusion. The fact that the zombie had no clothes on meant that Lara could see, in utter horror, the monster's growing erection.
What the fuck?
Okay, hold on. Okay. She knew that he had torn off her shirt. God damn it, fuck that up. She knew that he hadn't torn her shirt off simply to get a better chunk of her flesh. Especially since his bloody hands were now reaching for her equally tight-fitting, incredible short shorts. Okay.
Where did you find this?
Normally, a single zombie would have been no problem for Lara, even unarmed, but this time it was different. Some strange gas and some stupid backstory I don't want to read. Hold on. Now Lara was as naked as the zombie, with the exception of her boots, socks, and her shorts, which were pushed down around her ankles at the tops of her boots. The zombie began crawling on top of Lara's prone form. Knowing the chances of escape and survival were dreadfully bleak, he misspelled dreadfully. Lara thought that a reflection of how she had come to this point was appropriate. Backstory. Not reading. The zombie placed its mouth onto one of Lara's large tits over her nipple and began sucking it. Against her will, the nipple grew hard in the creature's mouth. My voice cracked. She felt the thing's bloated tongue around the rim of her nipple and drag over the tip, causing more unwanted pleasure. The zombie was still pumping into Lara, gaining in speed. It started hammering her harder and harder. The thrusts were pushing Lara back and forth across the table. She was sweating greatly and her back was sliding against the metal. Although she was hating herself even as she started, the cross of pain and pleasure was becoming unbearable, and Lara began to let out screams and cries as the zombie plunged into her, deeper and deeper, not entirely from pain and fear. Finally, the zombie thrust as deep as it could into Lara's battered cunt and released itself in her. The monster's cum spewed into her womb and immediately caused a terrible burning sensation throughout her body. As the zombie came, it also bit down on Lara's hard nipple, tearing through her flesh. Then it pulled back, taking the young woman's nipple from her huge breast. Whatever pleasure Lara had been feeling disappeared in that split second of the zombie coming and biting into her tit. There's like 17 more paragraphs if you want me to read them.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Alright.
Do it, please.
This is a pleasure.
Where did I, oh, okay,
It'll
here we
make
go.
it 10
Alright,
times better.
alright. Again, she arched her back and let out another scream, this time simply from the pain. Blood oozed from her torn breast, spilling down her side and into her cleavage. Then she slumped back down onto the table and cried, tears streaking down her smooth cheeks. Now that the zombie's load has been shot into Lara, it looked down at her nude, sweating body in a different kind of interest, an interest of hunger. Its hands that had recently disrobed her now went to her slim stomach. It tore through her flesh, more blood spilling out, and began pulling out the girl's intestines. Lara watched in horror as the zombie brought her intestines to its mouth and started to feast. Voice crack. Despite the incredible pain it caused, Lara thought it was interesting that she could actually feel the zombie holding and biting her guts. She watched the zombie eat her... The fuck is this sentence? Eat her world grew black. The zombie reached into Lara Croft's torn open stomach and pulled out another handful of guts and went back to eating. Meanwhile, Lara's eyes were still locked onto the gory scene, but she no longer saw them, nor anything else for that matter. Tired of using its hands, the zombie began to move down Laura's guts to eat more. As it did, a gunshot sounded, the zombie's head exploded, sending brains, skull chips, and all that shit into multiple directions. Doorway, Albert... Albert Wesker was holding a smoking magnum in one hand and tucked the vials of something into his pocket. His eyes observed the scene from behind his dark aviator sunglasses. It was a pity that Lara hadn't made it. Wesker had been looking forward to spending some time with her after the mission. He considered an idea for a few moments, then headed towards the corpse. Wesker unbuckled his pants and pulled the dead zombie off of the young woman's corpse. He turned Lara over and hung her rear over the edge of the table, her limp legs dangling. He spread her cheeks to get a good aim at her cunt from behind and pulled out his erect cock. He positioned himself and thrusted forward with all his might. Wesker was lucky. Her body hadn't even finished cooling. As he pushed back and forth into her, he could see blood pooling around her stomach. Knowing he didn't have long to waste, he picked up speed and quickly shot his load into her mix with the zombies. Just as he was pulling out, Lara let out a moan and her body began to move again. She lifted her head up, her eyes milky. Even though the majority of her stomach was eaten, she felt a hunger forming. All of her humanity was gone, and all she knew now was that Wesker was behind her, with his warm, live flesh. Wesker drew his magnum again, and put it to the back of undead Lara's head. Her eyes narrowed in confusion as she felt something pressed against her skull. Then Wesker pulled the trigger, and the front of Lara's head exploded, once again showering the room with gore. What was left of Lara's head fell back to the table, and she didn't move again, except for the occasional death twitch. Wesker did his pants back up and left the lab, hoping to make it out of the Spencer estate. He wondered if he could come across any female STARS members in a similar place. He smiled cruelly. He hoped so, especially that Rebecca. She had a sweet ass.
That was so fucking weird.
10-10.
I know
Good
what's
idea.
more weird. That
What
story or that people fap to it.
I'm checked off to it. Is there an issue?
No,
No.
please tell me there's more.
There's actually a continuation.
How the hell did you die?
I would enjoy that.
What?
How did you go
I
on
don't
to
know how I
die?
was tabbed out.
Oh. It's fucking black.
Really?
Nigga died on the street.
I'm everything but
No
black.
doubt.
You black. You black, nigga. You black.
Pixar didn't happen.
Oh, hell yes.
Oh yeah,
Please
that's a big
antibiotics. Maybe, please, yes.
I will
see
wait
someone with a
until I'm-
flashlight.
Ah, shit, I don't have them.
I wonder if there's a DayZ fanfiction.
Who is flashlighting?
Not us. Wait,
It might be Angel.
it might be Angel.
Kill him.
Freaking
see
boxes
shit in
spawn.
here.
There's a car wheel in the box.
Yeah, there's a car. There's a car driving inside Cherno's now. Or Cherno, rather.
Oh, is it,
The
is
shadow from
it
what direction?
west of Cherno?
Yeah, he just drove into the city, I think.
That's me.
You come pick me up then.
Really?
Go back.
Okay.
You had a
Give
car?
me a ride.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I should stop
Wait, you don't want
recording.
to pick me up? I'm in Kaminka. Pick me up, please.
I'm
Should
on
I
the
keep
road.
recording?
No,
You
no, no.
recorded
Yeah.
all that?
I was recording my view
that's
and then you started reading.
You should upload it. I want to hear